22 doctors stood outside that hospital room and gave up, but nobody thought to ask the janitor mopping the floor down the hall if he used to be a paramedic, and nobody knew that the little girl dying in that bed was about to be saved by a man who wasn't even supposed to be there that night. The single dad had come to the hospital for something else entirely. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a nurse. He was just a tired father sitting in a plastic chair, waiting to hear news about his own son, when he heard the screaming down the hall. A mother's scream, the kind that makes your whole body go cold. He looked up and saw nurses running, saw a stretcher rushing past, saw a little girl no older than 7, her lips turning blue, her small chest barely moving. The single dad froze for a second, just a second. Then something inside him, something old and buried, took over. He stood up before he even decided to stand up. His son, lying in a hospital bed just feet away, watched his father walk toward the chaos instead of staying by his side, and that single choice would change everything for both of them. The single dad hadn't set foot in a hospital hallway like this in almost 10 years. Not since the accident that ended his career and nearly ended his life. He used to be a paramedic, one of the best in the county, until a car crash on a rainy highway crushed his leg and crushed his confidence right along with it. He walked with a limp now. He flinched at sirens. He hadn't touched a defibrillator or given chest compressions since the day he lost a patient he couldn't save. A memory that haunted him every single night. But that night, watching this little girl slip away while doctors argued over what to do next, the old instincts came roaring back. Nobody in that hallway knew who he was. To them, he was just a stranger in a faded flannel shirt. A man who looked like he didn't belong. A nurse tried to push him back. "Sir, you can't be here." But the single dad didn't move. He looked at the little girl's monitor, saw the numbers dropping, and said words that made every doctor in that hallway stop cold. "She's not having a heart attack. Look at her hands. Look at her lips. That's not cardiac, that's anaphylaxis. Somebody check what she ate in the last hour." Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the whole world is holding its breath. One young doctor, barely out of residency, turned pale. "We already ruled that out." The single dad shook his head, his voice steady despite his shaking hands. "Then rule it back in, because in about 90 seconds, her airway is going to close completely, and none of your machines are going to matter." Nobody argued this time. Something in his voice, some quiet authority forged from years of real experience, made them listen. A senior doctor barked an order, and within seconds, they found it. A small allergy card in the girl's pocket. One that had been overlooked during the chaos of her intake. Peanut allergy. Severe. The father who had left to park the car hadn't mentioned it because he didn't know his daughter had eaten a granola bar from a stranger's snack bag on the bus ride over. The single dad grabbed an EpiPen from the crash cart before anyone else could react. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory of every patient he had ever lost, every face he still saw when he closed his eyes. But this time he didn't hesitate. He pressed it against her thigh and pushed. 10 seconds. 20. The room felt like it lasted a lifetime. Then, slowly, painfully slowly, her chest rose. A real breath. Then another. Color started creeping back into her lips, and somewhere behind him, a mother who had been sobbing on the floor let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream and wasn't quite a cry, but something in between, something raw and grateful and disbelieving all at once. The doctors stood frozen, 22 of them who had cycled through that room in the chaos of the last 20 minutes, all outsmarted, outpaced, and honestly humbled by a stranger in a flannel shirt who wasn't even supposed to be there. But the story doesn't end with the girl breathing again. Because as the nurses swarmed to stabilize her, the single dad turned around and saw his own son standing in the doorway of his hospital room, gripping the frame with thin, pale fingers, tears streaming down his face. His son had unplugged himself from his monitor and walked, down the hallway for the first time in 3 weeks. You see, the single dad's boy had been battling a mystery illness that no doctor could diagnose either. a condition that had stolen his appetite, his strength, and slowly, his hope. The single dad had been living in that hospital for weeks, sleeping in chairs, missing work, drowning in bills, watching his only child fade a little more every single day. And in that moment, seeing his son standing on his own 2 feet, something broke open in both of them. "Dad," the boy whispered, voice cracking, "you saved her. You're a hero." The single dad walked over, ignoring the astonished doctors, ignoring the crying mother, ignoring everything except his son's trembling hands reaching out for him. "No," he said softly, pulling his boy into his arms. "You're the hero. You got up. You walked. Do you know how long I've been praying for that?" The hospital staff exchanged confused glances, because none of them understood the full picture yet. None of them knew that this stranger who had just performed a life-saving intervention was fighting his own private war just down the hall. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. 3 days later, hospital administration called the single dad into an office, and he assumed the worst, that he was in trouble for interfering, for practicing without current certification, for stepping into chaos that wasn't his to fix. Instead, the head of the hospital board sat across from him with tears in her eyes. "That little girl you saved," she said. "She's my granddaughter." The single dad's mouth went dry. He hadn't known. He hadn't asked. He'd only seen a child in danger and done what his heart told him to do. The woman continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I checked your record. 10 years ago, you saved a man's life on Route 9, pulled him from a burning car before backup arrived. That man was my husband." The room went completely silent. The single dad sat there, stunned, memories flooding back, faces he thought he'd never see connected again, moments he thought had been forgotten by everyone except him. "I never forgot your face," she said, wiping her eyes. "I've spent 10 years wondering how to thank the man who gave me more time with my husband before he passed. And now you've saved my granddaughter too." She slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer, a full scholarship to recertify as a paramedic, a paid position waiting for him at the hospital, and enough financial assistance to cover his son's ongoing treatment that had been financially crushing his family for months. The single dad broke down right there in that office, years of guilt, exhaustion, and quiet suffering finally spilling out. "I thought I failed everyone," he whispered. "I thought that accident took away my purpose." The woman reached across the table and took his hand. "It didn't take your purpose. It just paused it. And your son, watching his father run toward danger instead of away from it, that's the moment he decided to fight for his own life too. Because that's exactly what happened." In the weeks that followed, the single dad's son continued improving, doctors later realizing his illness was tied to severe stress and emotional exhaustion. Conditions that eased dramatically once his father found purpose again, once laughter returned to their tiny apartment, once hope stopped feeling like a foreign language. The single dad returned to work as a paramedic 6 months later, walking through hospital doors not as a stranger this time, but as a respected member of the team, his limp still there, but his confidence fully restored. And every single day, that little girl he saved stops by his station just to say hello, sometimes bringing him crayon drawings of 2 stick figures holding hands, labeled simply, "My hero and me." The lesson in all of this is beautifully simple. You never know when your worst days are quietly preparing you for your most important moment. The single dad didn't feel brave that night. He felt broken, tired, and afraid. But he moved anyway, because sometimes courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to act even while carrying it. And sometimes the family you're trying so hard to save ends up saving you right back. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment to share your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Wings of Kindness for more inspiring stories. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life forever.